Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we have the latest from the live radar. Run for the latest UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, as we are now in the midst of a very unsettled spell of weather as we come towards the end of October. We have seen a lot of rain over the past 24 hours and it is going to continue to tot up over the next few days, and it looks like there is a real possibility of a really quite severe storm moving through on Thursday morning. Now of course we had Storm Amy a few weeks ago, but that impacted mostly northern and western Scotland. Now this storm that we could be seeing on Thursday, which hasn't been named yet, but I'd say there's probably a 50-50 chance of it being named looking at the latest impacts. It is the opposite end of the country, impacting southern and eastern areas of England instead. We're not looking at the same severity of winds. We're not looking at 80 or 90 miles per hour, probably peaking at 60 or 70, but it's the impacts is what normally decides whether a storm is named and the level of warnings, because this could impact millions, if not tens of millions of people during not only rush hour Thursday morning, but could last all the way through to Thursday evening. So not an overnight storm. I suspect we will see some quite severe warnings, and as I said, a 50-50 chance of this being named. It has shifted southwards and eastwards overnight into today, and that does bring the strongest winds away from Wales and parts of the Midlands, as it was showing yesterday, more towards eastern and southern England today. There's a chance it could clear out into the Channel, and that would be a good thing if we wanted to avoid damage. But we'll have to wait and see, though, on its timings for that system. But yeah, looking like a really quite severe system moving through. And once that clears, we don't end with the disruptive weather, as it turns much, much colder as these systems clear to the east, as we see northerly winds arriving into the weekend. At the moment, it's too early in the season to see anything too cold, but by day, temperatures might struggle to get much above 8 or 9 degrees, even in the southeast. And overnight, we could see quite widespread frosts, especially in the north. And for rural areas, there's an odd chance that some towns and cities could see a frost maybe into Sunday. Beyond that, as we'll see from the long-range charts, it remains very unsettled and definitely looks like there could be further colder or Arctic blasts to come. Definitely GFS and ECMWF suggesting that today. So I'll look at that in a little bit more detail in the second half of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, do like and subscribe. Now if you start on the live radar, calling this around 8 PM on Monday evening, you can see there are still quite a few showers around, but these were a lot more severe and widespread earlier on today. You can still see some of those really hefty showers across parts of Kent, but this was all across southern and eastern England today, spreading northwards as well. But those showers are starting to fade away as the centre of the low not only clears, but we also lose some of the energy from the sun, fueling some of these showers. But of course, we saw a big weather front move through yesterday, and then we've seen all these hefty showers. They've probably been a little heavier, a little bit more organised than we anticipated, and it has given some really horrific conditions today. Now temperatures will of course be much, much colder today. You can see a lot more in the ways of blues mixing in there, which isn't a surprise given the cloud and rain we've seen, and I suspect those temperatures will start to tumble further and further later on this week. Now, if you look at the past 24-hour precipitation, you can see all of those showers streaming in off the Channel over the past 24 hours, especially during this morning and afternoon. And you can see across central southern England and southeastern areas, yellows appearing. That's why we've seen a good inch or two of rain. You can see their streaks, and it's these lines of showers along the isobars moving in, and that's why we've got these big areas of rain. You can see pretty much everywhere has seen some quite hefty rain over the past 24 hours. Those areas across parts of Northern England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland have not seen rain in the past 24 hours. It's because the majority of that rain fell prior to the past 24 hours. So we've all seen quite a big dumping over the past day or two, and we'll continue to see further precipitation, perhaps settling down a little bit the next day or two before really picking up again into Thursday with that potential storm moving in. Now, if you look at the latest UKV, you can see all of those showers clearing through this afternoon, and overnight they should subside. Into Tuesday, it's another day of sunshine and showers, but we're not expecting those showers to be anywhere near as widespread or as severe, but still, nonetheless, quite a high chance of seeing the odd shower moving through. Now into Wednesday, it's a bit of a calm between the storm, ahead of the storm, and you can see not really much going on, but by Wednesday afternoon you can start to see weather fronts moving in. Now, this is the first development of that storm system moving into Thursday morning. You can see it approaches, continues to into Wednesday evening, and it's really when this hook develops into the early hours of Thursday, that's our storm system. So it's a very interesting system because it doesn't arrive particularly mature. It develops over our shores, which not only means that it could be really severe as a rapidly deepening storm is always more dangerous, but it does make it highly unpredictable. How will it interact with not only meeting land, but also other microclimate conditions? As out to sea, it's a lot more predictable. Interacting with the jet stream, not too much going on. But over land, we've got perhaps more convection taking place, a lot more things to go into the equation. And that's why it's very difficult to forecast these rapidly deepening systems over our shores. And you can see that's exactly what happens into the early hours of Thursday, with the heaviest rain moving through Thursday morning into the afternoon there, clearing eastwards. But I said, still significant disruption for rush hour, and that's because on the back edge, the wind is streaming off, howling in off the North Sea by this point. We'd be seeing 60 or 70 mile per hour winds along the east coast, 50 miles per hour further inland. So even though the heaviest rain is Wednesday night into perhaps Thursday morning, the strongest winds will be Thursday morning to Thursday evening there before it does slowly clear. And once it does, into Friday, we see northerly winds arrive. And you can see the wind direction shifting to the north. You see some drier slots moving through, and even the first signs of some snow over the higher ground of Scotland. Again, not too unusual for this time of year, but it's the first kind of proper northerly spell. We've actually seen some winteriness in the showers this autumn so far. And you can see it turns much, much colder there all the way into the weekend with a classic northerly blast with Arctic air moving in. You can see the upper air temperatures are relatively mild with that system moving through, that storm system into Thursday. You can see quite a warm core to that system. That's why it develops so rapidly, with about a 15-degree temperature contrast from 11 or 12 degrees there to -3 out in the Atlantic. But you can see it's cools down a little bit into Thursday, Friday, but the properly cold air, the blues, arrive there into Saturday. You can see the stream coming straight from the north, widely -3 to -5 degrees at 850 HPA, a good 8 to 10 degrees below average for the time of year. Now, if you look at the mean sea level pressure, if we look at that system into Thursday, you can see on approach during Wednesday evening, it looks a nasty area of low pressure around 980 millibars, but nothing extreme. However, it rapidly deepens over our shores into the early hours of Thursday, going from 986 around Wednesday evening, by midnight on Thursday, 976, and as we head into Thursday morning, down into the low 960s there, just out into the North Sea, and this is where we see those winds streaming in off the North Sea. Come Thursday morning into the afternoon before it slowly subsides there into the early hours of Friday. So its development here as it moves to central, southern and eastern England, that is the real critical point. And if it doesn't develop that much, then we could be looking at a bit of a non-event, some heavy rain and some gusty winds. But if it rapidly deepens, like this run shows, even though it does peak in the North Sea, rapidly deepens across England, that's where we could be seeing issues, as the winds could go from nil to gale force in the matter of a few hours. Squally winds, rapidly developing convection as well, could be wild on Thursday if this did occur. Now, we're only 3 days away, so the chance of this completely not happening, well, fairly low now. But there is still a lot of room to budge. As said, very unpredictable, these systems, very difficult to forecast. So I wouldn't be surprised if the UKV has got this a little bit wrong. I'd hope that we're able to forecast it correctly at this time frame. But these are one of these systems. We see it with channel lows during snow events potentially as well. So there's a similar sort of pattern where as soon as these systems move along a sort of a southerly track, an unpredictable track, into the Channel, into the North Sea, it does deviate quite a lot. It's not an easy to predict classic Atlantic system that's developed to its peak 24 hours before it reaches our shores. Normally these storm systems are actually subsiding as they approach. But this system is not. It's rapidly deepening before it clears out to the North Sea and then weakens as it heads out. And then you can see the northerly winds streaming in. Now, if you look at the wind gusts, you can see as we head into Thursday afternoon, as the heavy rain approaches, it's not bad. It doesn't look stormy at all. The strongest winds are actually with a low pressure system out in the North Atlantic. But into the late hours of Wednesday, the winds pick up in the Channel. not too unexpected with a southerly tracking low pressure system. The strongest winds are always going to be out to sea. But then look what happens into Thursday morning. If we go by frame, suddenly 50 to 60 mile per hour gusts could appear across central southern England. More widely 40, 50, 60, some out towards the Irish Sea, North Sea, Channel. And then as we head into rush hour on Thursday, widely for coastal areas, 60, 70, inland, widely 40 to 50. And then around lunchtime, look at that, widely around 50 to 60 inland. And along those North Sea coasts, look at that, 90 miles per hour just out to sea, gusting 70 to 80 along the coast. And you see that continues into Thursday afternoon with 90 miles per hour just off the coast of Norwich there out towards East Anglia, and widely 50 to 60, if not towards 70 across much of central eastern England. And then it slowly peters out into the early hours of Friday. So you can see it rapidly deepens from nothing 9 p.m. Wednesday or even midnight Thursday. Within 6 to 12 hours, that same system that's delivering rain there Wednesday night turns into a bit of a beast, and we see some really strong winds. And as I said, just purely looking at the numbers, 60 mile per hour gusts normally warranted a yellow warning. But it's the fact that it's hitting a widespread area for a prolonged period of time in the most populated areas of the British Isles in an unusual wind direction coming in from the north. And we do actually see the winds perhaps accelerate to 70 or even 80 miles per hour. And that's why I think widespread yellow warnings will be issued. Amber warnings will be issued for eastern parts of England. And I suspect, as I said, this system will be named. The more I look at it, if this came off, this would be a named system. But as I said, it's about whether this system does come off or not. So we'll keep a very close eye on this over the next day or two. But yeah, looks like a really lively system. Not your classic Atlantic low. One of these smaller scale systems that could pose some real issues there into Thursday. Now, if you look at the max temperatures, as we head into Tuesday, temperatures hovering around average, around the low to mid-teens, not too bad. Into Wednesday, a bit of a chilly morning, around the high single digits, but by the afternoon, once again, 13 to 15 degrees. Now, Thursday, temperatures are going to be all over the place. It's under the cloud and wind and rain, it's going to be only 8 or 9. But actually, the upper air temperatures are relatively mild by this point, so it's going to be a really weirdly feeling day. If you get out of the wind a little bit and get a bit of sunshine, it probably won't feel too bad. But yeah, under the cloud and rain, it's inevitably feel very cold. Into Friday, the temperatures do recover a little bit, low teens, but the cold air is on its way, and it's the early hours of Saturday there. Not too cold across England and Wales, as the cold air is just arriving, but across Scotland, widely down towards the low single digits, if not freezing. And by Saturday afternoon, temperatures not rising much, 8 or 9 degrees quite widely. And remember, we've got sunshine at this point, wind chill making it feel much colder. And then, of course, I suspect into Sunday, that's where we'll see the coldest temperatures, probably widely low single digits, freezing further northwards, and temperatures again struggling around the high single digits come Sunday afternoon. We expect it to subside a little bit there into Monday and Tuesday. Now, if you look at the longer range, you can see that low pressure system developing across central southern England there during Thursday. Again, it's a little bit pointless now looking at these these bigger operational runs that are not particularly high resolution, but you can see a very similar track on the GFS here, and you see a very similar low pressure centre and depth there out in the Atlantic, around 960 millibars, into the North Sea. And you can see with the wind gusts, we are again looking at 110, 120 kilometres per hour, which is in around that 70 or 80 mile per hour range, around 60, 70 or even 80 kilometres per hour quite widely inland. And again, that's around that 40, 50, maybe 60 mile per hour point. So even though I wouldn't put too much stock in the GFS at this time frame, the UKV is going to be a lot more accurate and other high resolution runs are going to be a lot more accurate. GFS nonetheless is in agreement with the UKV there on its track and its severity. And then we see the northerly winds piling in through the weekend. You can see they last all the way through Sunday into Monday before we see a bit of a westerly flow returning. And there's still a bit of a west to northwesterly wind, so I don't suspect it's going to turn very mild very quickly. And there, as we head towards Halloween, it is a west to northwesterly wind, so it'll probably be cool and it'll probably be pretty unsettled. Now, we've got a very interesting chart here. We actually see further cold blasts, and this looks like a bit more sustained with the Atlantic block a bit further west. And this pulls in some very cold air for the time of year, even colder than what we're seeing now, and it lasts a little bit longer. This is the sort of pattern that could produce quite a bit of snow, transient snow potentially during the winter months. But of course, early November here, unlikely to develop into much. But nonetheless, temperature deviation, a good 6 to 8 degrees, if not 10 degrees below average. And again, if we zoom in to the surface temperatures, widely below freezing overnight, and by day, only 6 to 7 degrees. Just shows you what 2 weeks would do to those daytime temperatures. The air masses are a little bit colder than what we're going to see later on this week, but not that much colder, a couple of degrees. But you can just see what the power of a few less hours in the day, or a few less tens of minutes in the day, and less sort of sun strength there as we head into early November. So yeah, very interesting. Another colder blast there from the GFS. Now if we look at the GM, it looks like it's fully up and running once again. And you can see again, northerly winds arriving later on this week. Very similar track to that system. If we just briefly look at it, you can see into the early hours of Thursday there, it moves into the Atlantic. So it ends up very similar track, but you can see it develops more in the channel than over land. So again, these subtle differences could make a big difference at what we actually see at the surface. So we'll keep a close eye on that. But nonetheless, it ends up in the same sort of vein. And you can see that northerly wind piling in into the weekend. And you can see it does subside, but it takes it into Monday afternoon, if not into Tuesday, before it fully subsides. And then as we head towards Halloween, we've got low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. But you can see it's more of a west to southwesterly flow. So it's a little bit of a milder pattern there, which I think some people would definitely prefer. If it's going to rain, at least make it a little bit milder pattern for Halloween. Now, if we finish by looking at the latest ECMWF, very similar. That system tracking across southern and eastern areas there into Thursday. Very similar track. But you can see it is a very low resolution run, this. So you can see it ends up out towards through Netherlands and out towards Netherlands there. So again, very similar. We'll have to just wait and see what the UKV and other high resolution runs show the next couple of days. You can see beyond that, we continue to see those northerly winds into the weekend. They do subside a little bit, but similar to the GM, it try to hold on there into Monday. So perhaps lasting into Monday, the colder air. We thought it would subside by Sunday, but it looks like we're going to see another little colder blast there into Monday. And then eventually out towards day 8, day 9, day 10. It's still a little bit chilly, but eventually westerly flow and some slightly milder areas building in. Still though, perhaps a bit of a ridge trying to develop to our north. So if you finish by looking at the latest ensemble, so you can see the latest GFS, temperatures are really dropping off over the next few days. Big drop off coming after that storm system clears on Thursday. And you can see some big precipitation spikes appearing for that now. It looks really cold through the weekend, even into the start of next week. And then temperatures do slowly rise there on the approach to Halloween. At the moment, average, but fairly unsettled. Beyond that, into early November, looking still very unsettled and temperatures not really decided. If we look at the 10-metre winds, you can see really big picking up there into Thursday, again highlighting the risk of that storm system. And if we look again at that sea level pressure, you can see a real big dip there on Thursday as the centre of that low potentially moves through. You can see here 970 to 980 from most runs when this system passes through or nearby to London. So again, very, very interesting. 2 metre temperatures, you can see dropping off massively over the next few days. And then you can see the operational GFS really cold longer term. As I said, with that midday run, really cold in the longer term, but it is a bit of an outlier. So again, I wouldn't put too much into that yet. And if we do look at the ECMWF run, again, big drop off in temperatures through this week, and then a rise into early November. And then again, you look at that precipitation spikes there on Thursday, just highlighting potential impacts from this storm system. And again, if we look at the dip in the pressure, again around 970 or 980 millibars as that system moves through. And again, if we look at those wind speeds, again a little bit of a spike there, but not as much compared to the GFS. So that's the ECMWF not developing it as much. But at this time frame, wouldn't always trust the lower resolution ensembles or even operational runs, as this system is not a big Atlantic low. It is a small scale system that is not going to be well modelled by these low resolution runs at this time frame. So I think we will focus on the next day or two. If we see similar pattern to today from the UKV, we will compare to some of the other high resolution runs to get a bit of better consensus perhaps tomorrow evening, 48 hours from, or only 36 hours really from the system arriving. So anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure you stay safe over the next few days, as we could be looking at a really stormy Thursday before we see cold air arriving. Do keep up to date with the videos, because of course we'll have more updates out looking at this potential named storm, and of course any subsequent warnings that will likely be issued. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.